what's up, guys? It's exciting to have you here. I'm talking to Nandor Fox Shaffer, and he's got a couple of books he's talking about, some projects he wants to promote, and he's a creator on the rise, so I wanted to take some time to talk to him and kind of put him out there and let everybody know what he's all about. But before I say too much about him, why don't I let him introduce himself? So go ahead. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is a great pleasure and really excited to talk about my books and things that have been happening. But yeah, I'm Nandor Fox Shaffer. I'm a comic book writer. I've been making comics for about 5 years now. I started writing comics right out of high school, actually. And I published my first book, which is right over here, Seasons Volume 1. I did that when I was 20 years old, and did Lifeline a couple of years after that, and then Seasons Volume 2 just came out, so I'm really excited about having that here finally. I've been for so long, people have been asking me for Volume 2 and for a continuation, and I've always told them it's going to be a series, so it feels very good to finally be like, here you go, like here it is. But so yeah, I have 3 books under me right now, and I'm really excited about this next project that I have launching on Kickstarter on August 2nd, and it's Man-Child, and it's the first issue. But yeah, I've been just a lover of stories since I was real young, and I've loved watching films and loved watching TV and big comic book fan, and as you can see from all my books behind me and stuff. But
I was gonna say that's an awesome backdrop you have set up behind you there.
Thank you. Yeah, I started my YouTube channel, FOXHOLE Comics, in January this year, and so I was really trying to figure out the best setup for my YouTube channel, and I was looking into different backdrops and LED lighting and light strips, and there's so much that goes on into a YouTube channel, and I was like, well, I really don't want to just put myself out there and have it look really shabby and nothing nothing happening for me, or I love sharing what I love, and I was like, I want all the things I love behind me and let people know kind of an insight on the stuff I like. And but it was really fun. I had to just move all these shelves by myself and do all this stuff, so it was a lot of fun. But yeah,
well, I guess
channel's been going. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, I guess what kind of inspires your stories? What are some of your favorite comics, movies, things like that? What kind of stories are you into?
Yeah, so I'm a massive just lover of stories that are very character driven, and stories that make me think about life and myself, and that I can see others in certain characters. If the story really resonates with me, either I'll relate to it, or I'll be like, that reminds me of this person that I know. And stories have always really moved me, and some of my favorite movies would be the Unbreakable trilogy by M. Night Shyamalan, and also Star Wars, of course, and I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I've read almost 50 Star Wars novels. I'm just crazy about it. So I really grew up watching Star Wars, of course, and I love Doctor Who. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and I really love the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith. His series was really something that really inspired me to want to get into writing and script writing, because I just loved the way that was done. And Doctor Who's very good at doing long form storytelling and doing a seasonal arc, which I think is really impressive for shows to be able to do that. And that's something that I really just gravitated towards and thought, man, how did they do that? And I got really curious about what that means. And in comics, that that kind of segues into Jonathan Hickman. He's a very long form storyteller, and if you read, his Fantastic Four run or his Avengers run, New Avengers run, and then really anything that he does over a long span of time, he always has all these different plot threads that he brings together over years, and it's just like mind-boggling to me because I don't know how you can create a web like that and have it feel so succinct and have it pay off the way he does. And a lot of people, I know, sometimes that's not for everyone, but it's one of those things where if someone's really confused or like, I don't know where he's going, I always tell them you just like stay with it, like it'll be worth it by the end. And he never lets me down when it comes to that. But so Jonathan Hickman, Ed Brubaker, his Captain America run was a big influence. I love the way he's able to do inner dialogue and like getting into like characters' minds. And I've been even more so recently. Something that a writer that I've been really loving is J. Michael Straczynski. I've read some of his stuff like growing up, but it was only until a couple of years ago that I started reading more about him, and I read his biography that he wrote, Becoming Superman, and learned more about his life. I've been really fascinated with not only writers, but their lives and how they got to where they are, and seeing the kind of things they go through to become a writer. But yeah, I've been a complete sci-fi nut and superhero nut for most of my life. So there's a lot of there's so many things that have influenced me, and so many things that I've absorbed. I just kind of really took so much in, and I think most of my life growing up, I'm sure there wasn't a day that went by that I either didn't watch a movie or read a comic or something, or both both in the same day. I just always really loved absorbing and following characters and seeing how a story is told. And it's funny because when I'm looking at a streaming service with like some of my friends or my girlfriend or something, and they want to watch a movie that like no one has seen, and like let's experience something for the first time together. It's always really hard because a lot of us have seen so many, and so it's really hard to find something that we haven't seen, and that's always a real good challenge.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the same for me. You mentioned Doctor Who, Matt Smith and David Tennant for me, like. I mean, it's really hard to choose. Ultimately, I usually go with David Tennant though, because I loved his exit. Like the ugly cry was just so real, and like I felt that, like So like he kind of edges Smith out for me, but I mean, it's really a tough choice. It's really a flip of the coin sort of thing. I also think like kind of like the silhouette and the iconography that I see in a lot of like animated images of the doctors, like David Tennant's doctor really stands out with that big coat and everything, so I think that's another thing that always like attracted me to him. But I mean, both of those runs are just like incredible stuff, and I mean, like you said, like some of these longer runs and longer form stories, like all that stuff really interests me. Have you been reading any of Ram V's work?
No, I haven't, and a lot of people have been recommending him to me, and I really need to read him because I know he's doing Swamp Thing right now, and it looks amazing. Like just from some of the art I've seen, and also I've read a few pages that people have been sharing online, and it looks really great. So I really need to.
Yeah, he does a really good job of like paying homage to like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, but at the same time also like kind of defining the character for himself too, so he's a really good writer. He's one that kind of fits in sort of the same category you're talking about, where like I love his work because it's just very immersive, and I feel like I get lost in each of his books, He's doing Catwoman.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be a Catwoman fan, but it's easily one of my favorite books right now, you know. So
Wow, I didn't know he was doing that. That's cool.
yeah, he took over at 25 and we're up to 33 right now. So all of
Wow.
those issues have been just really good. You know, it feels very much like Daredevil or like Teenage Mutant
Mhm.
Ninja Turtles, like very grounded and gritty and
Cool.
stuff like that, you know. So he does a really good job. He also has a book called The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, and that's another
Okay.
book I've really been enjoying. So, and that's one, like you were talking about how you like to look into like the writer's life, you know, and kind of see where they're
Yeah.
connecting these dots. And he talks about in his newsletter, he was talking about how he's from India and he used to work for like these corporate gas companies, and so
Hmm.
like he would be in like Dubai and stuff. He would be like in this corporate culture, right? Because he was working for like these
Yeah.
gas and oil companies, but they would need him to go out to like the wetlands and stuff where they actually drill for oil, and he would have to like inspect things and survey land and stuff. You know, it was real swampy and wetlands and stuff. And
Oh
so
wow. Yeah.
he talks about how like, you know, because Layla Starr, it's basically like the Hindu gods, but like in a
Hmm.
corporate structure sort of setup. And so he talks
Wow.
about in his newsletter like how his corporate life is basically Layla Starr, but all the stuff he was doing in the field, you know, that's where he gets all this Swamp Thing stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's really cool to see like how these writers connect these dots and kind of how those stories connect to them, and it makes it like connect that much more to me knowing where that inspiration comes from.
Yeah. I think I always wonder when I read a great story or watch, a great movie or something, uh like, man, where did that come from? Like what inspires other people, or what is that nugget that made them go, this is gonna be great, or this, and what
Yeah.
experiences in their life, did that lead up to it? It's so
Yeah, I feel like
fascinating
I'm
to
always
see.
like looking and watching for like the seed idea. Like there's always
Yeah.
some scene or some moment in a movie or a TV show or a comic, you know, where you're like, ah, that's probably where like this whole thing came from. They probably like imagined this and they like broke it out into a whole story, you know. So I'm always trying to like
Yeah.
figure out
Yeah.
where that came from.
Yeah, I know a lot of the time, when I'm writing and making my own stuff, usually a story is brought out through like one scene. Like there's one scene that I really like. I'll think up, or I'm like, what would happen if this happened to a character in this one moment, and then it just breeds like so much more that you extrapolate from it, and it's incredible because it almost, to me, it feels like magic. Like I don't know how it's working, but it's working, and the way my mind is going about it, it's just, for some reason it works, and I'm like, I don't know how this is working, and it feels like I'm discovering a story that
Hmm.
hasn't been told, or that I'm trying to figure out. And uh, you know, a lot of the time, and I tell other writers this too, stories, the best stories or really good stories write themselves. They kind of take you on where they want to go. You have to let the story speak for itself, because
Hmm.
when you try to manipulate it too much, then it starts to break down, and it becomes really insincere. But when you look at characters and you think, okay, how would this character, knowing, if you know your characters well enough, how would they respond, to this situation? And the story writes itself, and
Hmm.
uh, it does. It feels like some sort of magical experience that you don't know why this is working, but it is.
Yeah. It's I can't even think of the artist right now. Maybe Da Vinci or something. But you know, he talks
Mhm.
about like whenever, you know, like he sculpted, whenever he like cut David from the stone, you know, the statue of
Mhm.
David, he always talks about like David was already there. He just had to find him and clean it
Right.
all up, you
Right.
know? And I feel like
Yeah.
that's where good stories come from. Like they're already there. All the pieces are laid out in front of you. A good writer can take those and put them together and give them
Yeah.
structure so that they, you know, carry their own selves through it all. But you can read, or you know, you can watch a movie or whatever, and you can oftentimes tell when something's like manufactured, like it's put together by numbers or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
you really can.
it feels like very, I don't know, just like very mechanical in its delivery. But whenever you find
Yeah.
a good writer and they have a good story to tell, like it all just flows. It makes sense. It's very organic feeling.
Yeah, and that's what I always look for when I'm reading a story. I'm not like overly analytical when I'm reading, because I'm really just wanting the story to like take me someplace. Or even when I watch a movie, sometimes like I don't necessarily turn my brain off, but I'm trying just to enjoy it. So when you really starts to break down, and the illusion of being in a story really starts to not work anymore, when something in your mind goes, like what was that, like that's not right, or that feels, like you said, mechanical or forced. I know a lot of the times when I'm talking amongst my friends and we're talking about what we don't like about a movie or a story, a lot of the time that'll come out like it was just so forced, or the moment wasn't earned. It just happened, and it makes you
Yeah.
kind of cringe inside, where you're like, like no. So
Yeah.
not what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. That I often tell people, like I'm a double consumer, because I get really anxious, and I find it hard to break out of like that analytical mind. So like whenever I read a comic
Yeah.
book, I don't even want to talk about it until I've read it twice, because like I feel like the first
Oh,
time I'm reading it, like I'm so like ready to turn the page and see what's next and like get to the end.
yeah.
But once I've been through it once, then I like go back and really can take my time, because I know where it's headed. And that's usually the time that I actually like sit back and then I go, okay, so how did I feel about that, and why did I feel that way? And that's why I start to break it down. Movies, like I watch them twice back to back, because that first time I'm just like, okay, so what's going to happen next? Where are we going now?
Yeah.
So, it's very hard for me
Yeah.
a lot of times to just like shut my brain off. But that's also the things I love the most, is something that can actually lose me in the adventure and make me forget to like
Exactly.
think about why it's happening. That to me is where like the story really gets elevated.
Yeah, a good example, kind of a timely example of this would be the Tomorrow War, with Chris Pratt. I watched that recently, and it started out really strong, and I really was enjoying the premise and where it was going. And then at some point, my brain just went like, oh, this, like, what happened? Like it was so good, and then it just kind of takes a nosedive and becomes very, a typical action movie that really doesn't make any sense. And then they had something like so strong, because he's a soldier that's drafted from the present day into the future to like fight this alien race, and it's like whoa, like that's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
And then you watch it, and it starts off really strong. Like the first like 40 minutes are just great, I think, and then it just goes on for a little too long. It drags out a little too long, and what made it so good in the beginning, that idea of like someone being drafted from the present day, it just gets kind of lost in this other storyline, and you go, man, like that just wasn't what I was expecting. And it's one of those movies that by the end of it, you're like, yeah, maybe either I need to rewatch this again, because like where it's headed, so you won't be thinking of these different, like, where it could go while you're watching it. But at the same time, you're like, yeah, I don't know if I can sit through 2.5 hours this again. So there's that too.
Yeah. It happens sometimes, and it's unfortunate. Like sometimes things they feel great for so long, and then it's just like somewhere at the end, the third act is like the hardest part for people to really land. I find movies oftentimes lose me in the third act.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I mean, like, if it all culminates into something that you can't really get behind, you really start to zone out, or just kind of check out and go, yeah, like that's not where I was hoping this would go. And yeah, if you, I heard someone say this, like a movie can start out, kind of rough, and maybe the middle is even, not the best, but if it lands if the ending is strong and it really like just knocks it out of the park, you'll leave the theater, or you'll leave your couch after watching that movie, and you'll be like, that was pretty good, just because that's how it ended. But it's different when something starts out really great, and then by the end of it you're like, oh man, it's not that great.
Yeah, DC, they're doing this Teen Titans Academy book right now, and for the annual issue, I guess they did it's like a yearbook, and there's there's 5 stories, but one of those is like a 2-page story basically. So you got like these 5 stories, right? And the thing about this book, like if you were to ask me like, should I read it, I would tell you yes. Like the presentation's great, it's structured like a school yearbook, and it delivers great on that. And the first story they start out with, very, very strong, very good. The last story that they end on, also very strong and very good. The stories in the middle, not that great. But because they opened with a good presentation, like because I like the beginning and the end, it leaves me with this feeling like, oh yeah, this was a good book overall, even though I know there's like 3 stories in the middle where I'm like, I didn't even care about those, So there is something to be said for like first and last impressions whenever it comes to a story.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So you said Seasons was your first book that you wrote? What is that one about?
Yeah. So Seasons Volume 1, Spring. It's the first book that I wrote. I started writing it in at the end of 2015, 2016, and we started putting it out as a webcomic in the fall of 2016. And just to kind of pitch it real quick, Seasons is a supernatural, grounded superhero story that follows this young man through 1 year of his life, and with each passing season his abilities change, so his power set changes, and he has to learn how to adapt to those changes he's going through and the 1 year journey that he's set on. So it's going to be 4 volumes, spring, summer, fall, and winter. And each volume has a different kind of either emotional or physical opponent that he has to overcome and try to find meaning in his life. So it's sort of a cross between a coming of age but superhero narrative that has a lot of supernatural and kind of spiritual elements in it. There's a lot of metaphor and symbolism, and like looking at the idea of seasons and change and cycles, and how you as a person, like what does it take to change and grow, or are you just going to fall back into the same cycle that you've been through? And so there's a lot of symbolism there and metaphor for how you're supposed to kind of tackle your own psyche and then the world itself. And some people have told me they've read the ones who have read volume 1, they've said it kind of feels like a fever dream. It feels like you're in the head of this person, and there are all these things happening, and you can't quite figure out what it is. And a lot of that is because of the character and the way that he thinks and the way that what he has to go through. And then so like in volume 1, he fights these shadow selves, and he fights like the absolute worst version of yourself that you could think of, like someone who like a person that doesn't have a conscience, and they could just kind of do whatever they want. And so he physically has to like fight himself, and he has to fight other shadow selves of people around the city. And so you get to kind of see that reflection of who you could be, and that really thrusts him on this 1 year journey to fight that within himself and become someone that he's proud of, or someone that he always felt he had this inkling like that's what I want, but can I reach that? And I think a lot of people feel that way, and whether it's their career or um, different things that they want in life, and feeling like they can't live up to them, or they can't make it, or they have so much baggage that there's just no point in going even further, because so much, quote unquote harm has been done, or they don't feel like they can really have the opportunity to do anything. And so Fletcher, the main character in the story, he really is that blank slate type of character that feels kind of isolated and depressed and alone, and has all this baggage, and just kind of is desperate to find that one thing that will kind of give his life some purpose. And little does he know that it's something completely different than what he could have imagined.
Yeah, that's a really cool premise. I love that idea that his powers change with seasons.
It's a lot of fun to write. A big reason for that too was I love superheroes, and I love certain characters and what they're able to do, and you think of some of your favorite characters and their abilities, and that's what makes them so cool, and when you compare different characters, you're like, well, Wolverine has health regeneration, but like Superman is unstoppable and all this stuff. And I thought it'd be so cool if the main characteristic of a character is that their powers are never the same, and that it depends on the cycles of of the seasons and the turning of the earth, and that idea of like being not in control of what you're able to do. I think a lot of people feel that way, not being I just want to be in control, and it's like actually the way the world turns and the way life sets you on this path, you find that like you're not really in control, but you have to figure out ways where you can adapt to that.
Yeah, I think the way you describe it, like, it's very relatable. I think we all go through this point in our lives where it's like we need to figure out who we are and what we want to do with our lives, and what is our purpose, so that's definitely something very relatable, I think, to anybody. And like for me, I'm very big on change. Like, I believe that the change is a constant, and that things are constantly changing. And I think the difference between like people that are successful and people that really find that kind of passion and motivation in life is, people that, they're ahead of the change, that they understand that change is going to happen, but they're also trying to take control, like, we live in this world where there's social media everywhere, and there's so many people that, we need to get rid of social media, it's ruining everything. And I look at that and I say, it's here, it's not going to go away. Too many people are making too much money on it, but I think we as a society, if we can get ahead of it and we can control it, then we can channel that change and make it change into what we want it to become, And so I think that really connects with the story and the idea that like he understands things are always changing around him, but if he can understand the change, then there's something he can really find motivation and find power within. So that's really interesting. I like that idea.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been it's a very ambitious project. Like when I first came up with the idea, I didn't realize that it would be this large of a project, and because each volume is over 100 pages, and they're go through so many different. I was able to go through with each volume so many different things I wanted to tackle, and different approaches to a single character, and how you can kind of keep things interesting, not only with the powers but the issues and trials that he has to face and go through. And it's a real exercise in my writing ability. And when I was starting and I was thinking about doing this, I was like, oh man, like I'm not gonna get done with this until I'm 30 or something. It's such a big project. I'm 24 now, so I've been thinking about seasons and thinking about this story for a really long time. But so far, it's been a very fulfilling ride.
And so it's like a single volume, or is it in issues, or is it more like
Yeah,
a
so it's
graphic novel kind
actually
of thing? Or
yeah, it's a graphic novel. So it's 100 pages, and it's told in chapters. So the first volume has issues 1 through 4, and then Summer Volume 2 has issues 5 through 7. So and each issue is around 30 pages or so.
that's awesome. And
Yeah.
both of these are already out. Did you release them through crowdfunding, or?
Yeah, so I did the first Kickstarter campaign I did was for Volume 1, and I did that in 2017. And so that's been out. It came out around the beginning of 2018. So that's been out for a couple years. And then that was through Kickstarter. And then I did the same for Volume 2. And in between these two volumes, I did my other book, Lifeline, which is a whole another thing to talk about, but it's a standalone graphic novel, and it's around 96 pages. And
Yeah, I've been staring at that cover, so I was like, I can't wait till we get to talk about this one, because that cover looks cool. Is that smoke coming out of his head?
Yeah, so that's actually, it's like faded memories. So you see, this is the main character. His name's Lewis, and you see the timeline of his kind of de-aging. So you see him as an old man, and then throughout the years, and then he's down here as a really young boy looking at his future self. So there's that aspect to it, and it's really it was one of my, like, I'm so proud of it, because it was something that I didn't know if it could actually work. It really came about as a kind of a writing experiment, because it's a story told from the perspective of different characters. So each chapter is told from a different character that is close to Lewis, the main character. So everything you learn about him is through the eyes of either his daughter or his grandson or his wife, and so it's a very simple drama piece. It's very quiet and somber, but there's a lot of nuance and subtlety to it that I really enjoyed writing. And I worked with 7 different artists from all around the world, and each chapter is drawn by a different artist to emphasize that idea of it coming from a different character's perspective, and also to convey that idea of it taking place in a different time of his life. So it's a real,
Man, that's awesome.
real joy. Like, yeah, I
like that
every time I
idea
look
that, like,
at it-
he's the main character, but like it's not really his perspective on his life. It's always somebody
Yeah,
else's.
yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I remember when I came up with that idea, because I wanted to. It was a challenge to myself. I thought, can you tell a story about someone, but never from their perspective, or never get like their, like you're following them, but I don't know. It was just really an interesting idea where I thought,
Yeah.
man, like, is that possible, and what would that look like? And I thought, in a graphic novel and a comic, I thought that would be really interesting. And to there were so many artists I wanted to work with too, and I thought this is the perfect project for that, because I could hit all these bucket
Yeah.
list people of indie artists that I really loved, and yeah, it turned out incredible. Actually, the artist for chapter 1, Emily Schnall, she is actually doing a project with Cullen Bunn right now called Harrow County, but it's like a offshoot of that or something. I think from I don't know if that's Dark Horse or not, but it's really cool because I got to work with her, and this was before that she got that professional gig. So it feels really cool to have worked with someone that is rising in the ranks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, whenever you said her name, I was like, I can't place it, but that sounds familiar. I've never read
it's
any
just
of
an
Harrow
incredible.
County, but I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of Colin Bunn and all of his other books, you know. And
yeah,
I know what
yeah.
you're
He's
talking
really
about. I
good.
don't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's almost like a kind of like an offshoot or like a side project of Harrow County,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of like
It's
a
kind
Harrow
of like a
County
little.
universe sort of thing.
Right, right. It's kind of like what they're doing with Black Hammer, and
Yeah,
the Vision stuff. So, but yeah, it's really
that's
proud
really
of it,
cool.
and people can actually get. Uh, I have the Indiegogo for Seasons Volumes 1 and 2 in demand right now, and if people want to get these, they can. And then I have Lifeline as an add-on. So if you get these books and you want Lifeline, you can get all three of them there. But yeah, they're each $20, and like I said, they're over 100 pages each. And what's really cool is both of these are hardcover, which I really wanted. I really wanted to keep like this deluxe version of Seasons. So this is a trade paperback, but Seasons volumes 1 and 2 are hardcovers. And what's really cool too, we did this for the second volume, is we embossed Fletcher on the cover and also did some gloss on him. So like it has a very nice feel, and a lot of people
Yeah,
will pick it up and they're just like, oh, it feels so good. So it's
yeah,
pretty funny. But yeah, I'm really
yeah. I
proud of
love that.
what.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of like foil covers. You know, people love foil covers. I hate them. Like, they look like
yeah, I
glare.
know
You
what you
know.
mean. Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's like
it's so
some.
90s.
Yeah, yeah. But I have like a Turok book from Valiant, and there they just
Mhm.
like foiled certain elements of the trade dress and like in the image. I'm
Cool,
like, that
cool.
looks
Yeah,
cool. Like, I like that way better than just like a full foil cover, because it
yeah,
just it's glare everywhere you look at it. You know, it looks like wherever you hold up a
yeah.
book on camera, but it's in real life. I'm like, ugh. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
And then like Batman and Catwoman, they've been doing more like that, where they kind of emboss and gloss certain elements of the cover, and so it makes
yeah,
like the
yeah.
eyes shine, or like Batman really sparkles on it. You know, it's really cool stuff.
Right. I've noticed that like they'll have like the characters will be glossed, but like the background will be matte or just a different texture. And I
Yeah,
really love that too. Like that's like when I pick up a comic and it has that almost deluxe feel to it, and how the textures change. There's something about it. It's just kind of
hmm,
satisfying.
yeah. It feels like they really cared about like the craft of the book and like how it's gonna feel in your hands and
Yeah.
stuff. You know, instead of just like, we got to
Yeah.
print this on paper so we can get it out the door. You know.
I know, I know. It's funny. Like, I noticed that like anytime I pick up a comic, I will instantly judge it on its paper quality. Just like that. Like, I don't even think about it, and I'm like, well, they didn't. Either I'm like, whoa, they really took their time with this, or I'm like, man, this like, what is this supposed to be?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I like whenever they do like different like quality or style of paper for like to kind of like fit the world of the book or something. You know, like
yeah,
that
yeah.
book, The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. It has like that kind of like thinner. It's not really like newsprint, but like it kind of has like a
Mhm.
more papery feel to it, a very light feel. But it feels
Yeah,
really good because the artwork's like all these like it's like kind of thin line style and stuff, like kind of
yeah,
scratchy artwork. It's hard to explain, but the artwork itself fits really well on like a thinner, lighter kind of paper, you know. So I love
yeah.
whenever, I mean, even if it's like trying to like save some costs, like if you kind of give it a thematic feel to it, it still works for me. I really like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of something I wanted to point out with Seasons. It's so the first volume is all black and white. And as we get to volume 2, we start introducing color, and as we get to the other ones, we're going to be adding more and more color. And that was a thematic choice that myself and the artist Anthony Gonzalez Clark, we wanted to do, because we thought it just worked so well with the story and the idea of starting, very raw and black and white, and this feeling of kind of, desperation, and then adding color to this person's life with each volume, and you get to see their growth, and that idea of, these very important moments on this 1 year journey that he has, and giving him some life, giving him
Yeah.
some hope and using
Almost
color.
like enriching his
give that-
life. And
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was like, I love anytime I see that where you really embrace either the comic book medium or any medium that you're in, and you're using the medium itself to tell a better story. That's just like amazing to me, and I love seeing that. And
Yeah.
I think it's a subtle thing, but I think it's really important. Like what you're saying, when you hold a comic book and you're flipping through it, it's a hands-on experience,
Mhm.
and I think it's really smart of people to think about that when you're producing a comic and going, how is this going to feel in my hands? Because I've gotten some, either if they're from the big two or from some indie books, where I'll feel it and I'm just like, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. Like either the staples
Yeah.
will, like the way that it's bound will like be kind of popping out, or just a little annoying in how it looks, like aesthetically. It's a very picky thing to
Yeah.
think about, but there's something
No,
to it that
Yeah. Like you're in the right place, because I always talk about like even a good comic, like I kind of give it, I kind of knock it if it feels like a movie or a TV show was really the goal here, or
exactly,
like
you're right.
I like my comic books to be comic books, and
yeah.
David Pepos, he recently did this series, Scout's Honor, and like it was good. I really liked it, but the fourth issue, it gets to this point where like the main character, it's a 5-issue series, so the fourth issue is really like there to set up the finale and stuff, and it really like all breaks down, and the character starts to get into their own head, and they're really figuring out like what all this means and how they're going to be the hero, and what happens is like all the backgrounds start to fade, like those first 3 issues you could do those shot for shot as a movie, but when you get to this 4th issue, like it just turns into a comic book, and like backgrounds start to fade away and the character strips down. I'm like, okay, this is what I was waiting for. Like, let's do a comic book, so like I really appreciate that. I love whenever people use the medium to like actually make me feel like this was a comic book and not like my movie pitch that didn't get picked up, so I'm still trying to make it,
I agree with you, and you can really point those out, like if you it's funny how like some of these limited series will get auctioned off before they even come out, and I'm like, what? Like the comic book hasn't even come out. It's like you just wanted a movie out of this, which I mean, sure, like that's cool and like good for them, but at the same time, it's like, well, what was this originally? Like, was this a screenplay and then you turned it into a comic book script? So I think that's really funny when
I don't know if you're
like
like current on James Tynan's work. He has this book called Department of Truth.
Yeah, I haven't read that one, but I am reading The Nice House on the Lake. I'm reading that.
That 2nd issue just came out. Yeah, I mean the thing with like Department of Truth is like it's 10 issues in. There's not, like, it sounds wrong to say like there's not a lot of content, but like there is, like each issue's packed, but it's been optioned for a TV show, and I'm like, this book was not written to be a TV show. Like people are like excited, and I'm like, look, what they optioned was the concept, because the most basic concept of it is there's basically like an X-Files or Men in Black type agency, and their job is to control like conspiracy theories. Because if enough people believe in something, then it becomes reality. And some of those conspiracy theories are dangerous for the world if they were to become real. And so they do like some very nefarious cover-up stuff to like make sure that those kinds of things don't become real. And I'm like, there's only 10 issues. The 10th issue just came out like last week. So there's not enough content for a TV show or a movie. What they optioned was like the concept of a Department of Truth, but once it makes it to TV, like it's not going to be what this book is at all, So and kind of the same thing. Like Something Is Killing the Children. That book got optioned, and it's like there's maybe 1 season of a show in there, but it's so like the pacing on it's so like wide open, and and slow paced, that in 15 issues we really haven't gotten much more than maybe like 3 or 4 episodes of a TV show. So they're gonna have to stretch it to even make one season with that. So what's gonna happen then? So I think they just have gone to optioning this stuff way too fast.
Yeah, it's like these companies are just trying to find the next big thing, and they're just like, well, maybe this is it, so we got to grab that, or we got to grab that. And when you think about it, it's only recently to where I know it's because of technology, but also I think storytelling wise, it's only recently where we've gotten really great Marvel movies and that idea of doing a Marvel cinematic universe. And I think a big reason why we can have that now is because it's been 80 years. It's like there's so much to like go through. There's thousands of issues, hundreds of thousands of comics to draw from when it comes to telling these stories and all this material. And I think that's what makes it work so well, because you can, all you got to do is adapt, like do an adaptation of that arc or that run. And, like with the Suicide Squad coming out by James Gunn, I'm really excited for it. And a big reason why is because I'm a fan of James Gunn, but also I know he read all of the John Ostrander Suicide Squad run, and he's really picking from all of that. And I'm like, oh, like, man, like, of course, like you have so much material there. Like you can do, whatever you want, and so much inspiration to draw from. And so that's why I think it's interesting when you see these companies, just option a movie or a TV show right away. It's like, it's only been a year, there's only so much that you can do, but like, we have 80 years of all this other history. And so, but I
it's all
can
like
see why.
Test and proven, like these companies can go online and they can see what fans really like about these stories and which elements of these stories they should pull when they adapt it to screen, whereas like in the reality is like sometimes like as those things were coming out, even if you look back to like the 60s and 70s and 80s, some of those stories, like they have rough spots and stuff, and there's parts where like, oh well, this section of the run's not very good, but everything before it's greater. And so when they're making the movie, they can go in and mine all that information, be like, okay, we need to iron out some of the kinks along the way here, but overall we can adapt this story and really make it work.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they've done that in some movies where, your favorite version of the Joker, is Heath Ledger, and it's like, that story has never been done before in the way the Dark Knight did it, but it was drawing from, so many years of this character. And that's how we got that iteration of it, is because, he's been around for so long. And of course it was different than anything that had come before it. And then even with Joaquin Phoenix with the Joker movie and how that was done. So it's for some people, it's like that's their favorite version of the character. But I think that only.
But he's been like
really
curated.
happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was reading an article just yesterday about the Watchmen movie that Zack Snyder did in 2009. And it was, talking about the ending, like why did he change the ending? And they went through all these interviews and stuff. And I think the book is better because it delivers on more to me. But I think it is interesting. Like whenever they went in, it wasn't the ending that they had to change. The problem was all of the subplots that go into making that ending make sense.
Yeah.
That's why they had to change the ending, because they had calculated it out, and it was going to add an extra 15 to 20 minutes of runtime to the movie to plant all the seeds for that ending to make sense, and not just like some random thing where a squid shows up.
Right.
I was like, that's interesting, because I've always been kind of annoyed that they changed the ending. I was like, it was so close to great. Why did they have to change that? But once I read that article, I was like, that kind of makes sense. Like they would have to plant a lot of seeds to get there.
Yeah, for sure. And I watched the I guess it's called the Ultimate Cut, I think, where it has the motion comic, the pirate motion comic
Yeah.
in between. And like, even though that's really cool, I was like, this is definitely not like the best version of the movie, because it takes you out of the film,
Yeah.
and you're you're watching this motion comic, and even though it's cool and it adds to the story, it's something that you can only really appreciate when you read the comic. And I am last year I was on this Watchmen binge during lockdown, and like I watched the film, and I watched the TV show, and I read Watchmen, and I read all the before Watchmen stuff too. And I was just like immersing myself in this world and thinking about the way that, they could have done the movie, or why they changed it. And I remember thinking like that the film version and that ending was a better idea. But then when I reread Watchmen and saw just how intricate that story is, and then when it gets to the alien at the end, I was like, you know what, like, no, that's better. Like it's just a better story, and it works better as a comic. And there's just one of my absolute favorite scenes in Watchmen is when the alien comes and really kills that part of the city, and it's seeing the newspaper man and the kid reading the comic, and how they embrace each other at the very end, and how they die together. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's such a beautiful moment. And I know that they show it in the film, but it doesn't have the weight.
Same impact. Yeah,
it's not the same. So
yeah, I think it's a great example of something that it's a comic story. Like, I think the squid, as much as I love that ending and everything, I think that like all of the stuff connected with the squid and all that part, like that is the most comic booky thing that could happen in a story.
I know. It's like Alan Moore was like, okay, how do we make a squid like realistic? Like how would that actually work, and how it's a fraud, how it's fake and everything. And I'm just like, it's actually really just really great. And
yeah, it's just brilliant. He was doing something there, like it was a weird time,
For sure.
So I mean, this has all been great, but I know Manchild is about to launch a Kickstarter campaign, or
Indiegogo? It is a Kickstarter campaign on August 2nd, and I'm really excited about this new project. This is something that I've been writing for the last couple of years, and I wrote the first issue about a year and a half ago, and I kind of let it sit there for a while, and then as I was working on Seasons, I was like, man, I really need to get back to Manchild. And so I've been writing that, and I've been that's been really on my mind, and doing this project. And so what Manchild is it was really born from my grieving the death of Stan Lee. After Stan Lee died, it was just it's one of those things where you think someone's gonna be there forever. And even though I never met the man or saw him in person, he's given me so much, and him and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all those creators in the 60s and the Marvel Age of Comics, and just what they did. I just thought, what an amazing person. And anytime we see him in the cameos in the films, or I watch interviews with him, he just seems like the most delightful guy ever. Like such a chipper person, such a inspiring person.
He has like an energy that really like transfers even through screen.
I know, it's just like he was gifted in a way that I don't like. I've never seen that before in other people.
Yeah.
And usually creatives and people, a lot of the time they're very quiet and really isolated, and they don't really want to be in the public eye. Yeah, but like he was like just like out there and wanted to talk with people and all this stuff. And And I loved him for it, and growing up with him, so when he passed, it was just such a uh, just, I don't know, it just really got to me, and I sat with that for a while, and I was thinking, like, what can I, if I could give back something to Stan Lee, what would I give back, because he's given me so much. And I thought, I need to make a comic. Like, I need to write a story about why I love him as a person, and his history, and just the Silver Age of comics, and that exciting time where the superhero was really rejuvenated and reinvigorated. And I thought, can we do that now? In the 21st century and in the 2000s, like, is that something that we can really kind of tap into again? And so that's where the idea came from, and the story, it follows this in the present day. It follows this, like, ultra comic book fan, this and that's why it's called Man-Child. He's in his 30s. He lives in his parents' basement. He plays video games. He doesn't go out that much. Like, he has friends and stuff, but he lives in comics and in stories. And he's still a virgin. All these things that as a man you're supposed to have all these things done by the time you're 30 or middle-aged or whatever. And he doesn't have any of them done. But what he does have is stories, and is his love for pop culture and comics. And so there's that. And then there's another story, and they interweave, if you pay close attention. But there's another story that takes place in a Silver Age universe that follows the superhero, and you get to see his adventures and the things that he's doing. So it's telling two stories simultaneously throughout the series, and it's a love letter to the Silver Age of comics, and also a commentary on comic book fandom and the trajectory that heroes have taken since the 60s and 70s, and how it started out very innocent, and then everything has kind of gotten darker and darker, and kind of looking at that trajectory, and then going, is the reason why these things have gotten darker and darker, or more mature, is that actually a good thing, or is that is it a bad thing, or is it what is that, and what is that supposed to be? And so I wanted to explore that idea of just how much comics as a medium has changed, and how much heroes have changed, and why that might be. And I thought that starting and looking at the Silver Age of comics, and what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did with the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and all those really classic characters, I thought that was a great place to dig deep into what makes superheroes and comics so special to people.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. I love that idea.
That's a lot. I know that's a lot of, like, information, but yeah, that's why I've been so excited to talk about it with people, and it's been something that's been ruminating and marinating in my mind for so long, and it's something that I think a lot of people have thought about, and again with relatability of what does it mean to love all these things from our past and our childhood, but still be an adult, or still have people see you as an adult, and the sacrifices that people make to grow up, or and I was talking, I've talked with my friends and other people that I know that are wanting to move on with their lives, and keep progressing in their lives, and they're always like, I wonder if it's like things that I like that's the problem. Like, I love these things, but people don't think I'm cool. You have those people in school that don't necessarily fit in because they like anime, or they like comics, and I was one of those people that just didn't really fit in with other people, and it makes you feel like an outsider. But but I'm like, that's what makes you special, or that's what makes you who you are. And I
Yeah.
wanted to explore that in a character, in a story, and look at the downsides of being too entrenched in what you love, and then also look at the beauty of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that idea, man. Like, it sounds like you're comparing and contrasting things in an interesting way that's like very relevant to where we're at. Because
Yeah, definitely.
it's one of those things. Like, my parents, they would tell me about stuff that they grew up with, but that was it. Like, it was stuff they grew up with, and it wasn't even
Right,
necessarily
right.
like I didn't want to keep up with this sort of thing. It's like technology just didn't make it available. Everything was on
Yeah,
broadcast TV. It came on when it came on. It went off when it went off, and
yeah.
you were either there for it
Right.
or you weren't. Like it never came
That's a
back
really great
for
point.
you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now we're growing up like like I grew up in the 90s, and there was like all these like 90s cartoons and stuff that really defined a generation. And then about the same time I hit adulthood, like Netflix came along. It was like all those things you used
yeah,
to love, you can love them again and just like watch them all.
yeah.
And
Right.
so, and then like the MCU, the rise of that, like it really touched a generation of people that always wanted like their favorite stuff to be adapted to screen, but like it just wasn't happening because that's not what the mainstream was going to support financially, as far as turning
Yeah,
out for a movie.
yeah,
So as we've grown up, then that's there, and it's like, oh, I don't have to let that go because it's in a movie theater like right now. So it's a
yeah.
really interesting and timely thing to look at, through a story. So that's really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what makes it really special, uh, in my mind, is looking at just how much the culture has changed. Society has changed throughout the years, and what is cool now. It's like it's so cool now to love Marvel comics or to love superheroes and to love Star Wars. Like it's so cool. But there was a time, where it's like, you weren't man enough, or you weren't macho enough, or you would grow up in a time where that wasn't cool. And it's like, what changed? It's like, how did that change? And why did it change? What makes it cool now? And I think it's society progressing, I think, in a strong way, in a good way, but also it could have that pitfall of going,
Mhm.
well, then you never grow up as a person, or like if you're hanging out with people and the only thing you can talk about is the story, it's like what, are you the main character in your life right now, or are
Yeah.
you just kind of like floating by and not really caring about what's happening to you? And I think stories reflect that, and I think a lot of stories for me have been lessons on how to live my life. And I think that that's something that, if I can give that to people, and that's something I've always wanted to do with my stories, are to move people in ways and make them think about their life and how things could be better. That's something that I would want people to get out of a child. And it's sort of taking that word back too, because that's such a
Pejorative.
derogatory term,
Yeah.
yeah, like, oh, he's a man child, like he's a man baby or whatever. And it's cool because actually, and we're playing with this a lot for the comic, but the first issue's cover is the main character Rufus, and he's sitting on a rooftop somewhere, and he's eating a bowl of cereal, with these like birds around him, and it just has this very childlike look to him, but he's this grown overweight guy who hasn't been doing much with his life, but he's just sitting there eating cereal, and it has a really comedic look. And this is definitely one of a series that is self-aware enough to have fun with itself, and that's something that I've been really enjoying with writing it, is looking at what makes a grown man, love these characters and things that they loved, growing up. And I think it's so cool, I mean, that's how, like, everything that I love, has been passed down from, my dad or from other people that I know, and, comics that people gave me, because they didn't want anymore, which now I'm like, man, why would you give those away? Like, don't give them to me. Like, it's cool that you infected me with this desire to now want to read comics all the time. But, I don't know if I could give my comics away to anybody because I love it so much,
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like a really cool, like, introspective kind of story. So it seems very timely and very interesting.
Yeah, those are the ones that I love to write. And what's I want to point out real quick too is what's really exciting is there's going to be top Marvel, DC, and Image comics artists that are doing variant covers for the first issue, and one of them is Welby, who did Marvel's X with Jim Kruger and Alex Ross recently. So it's that prequel series to the Earth X trilogy. He's doing a variant cover. And also Tom Riley, he's done an issue of Immortal Hulk, and he did Marvel Snapshots X-Men, and he's done some other work for like Dark Horse and stuff. And then the one I just revealed on my YouTube channel, FOXHOLE Comics, is Tony Harris, and he's an Eisner Award winning artist, and he did Starman with James Robinson in the 90s and Ex Machina with Brian K. Vaughan, and he's done a lot of great stuff. But being able to work with these top tier artists on my book, it's the first time I've been able to work with Marvel and DC artists, so it's really exciting, and it feels very it just feels perfect for the book, because it's about the history of comics itself and looking at superheroes, and so it feels very satisfying to be able to work with people that have been working in the industry for so long.
Yeah, man, that's really awesome. And you said it launches on August the 2nd?
Yeah, August 2nd.
But it's just like one issue, or is this another like graphic novel style?
Yeah, it's a single issue. It's going to be a limited series, and I'm going to be doing a campaign for each issue. So this will be my first time doing a single issue series instead of a full graphic novel. So I'm hoping it's easier, doing it that way. But because there's just so much work that goes into doing a graphic novel like at once. But I really wanted to go back to that again. Reason why it's not a graphic novel right away is I wanted to go back to that classic format of releasing single issues and having people anticipate, get the cliffhanger and anticipate the next issue, and get the cliffhanger and want, issue 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So that's another reason too, is like I wanted to, again, embrace the medium and use it in a way to better tell the story and make people, hopefully, email me all the time and be like, why aren't you putting out issue 2 or 3 like right away? Like, I need that, So that's what I'm hoping for.
And what's going to be available as far as like Kickstarter rewards? Sounds like you have at least 4 covers. Is there like a digital version and all that, or?
Yeah, so there'll be a PDF where people can get. It'll be fairly cheap to get the PDF, and then I'll have the different covers, and then I'll have also where you can get your name, in the back of the book, or you can get drawn into the story, where you can get original sketch from the artist. So there'll be a lot of different rewards that people can look at, and also I have a bundle option where people can get all my books, in one reward. So if you like what you see, and you want to read Seasons and Lifeline and Manchild, you can get all those at once. So that's something that I'm really excited about. And also I have stretch goals, and hopefully I know I'm going to have a Kickstarter exclusive art print that people can get too. So if you back it, you'll get a exclusive art print that you can only get through Kickstarter.
Nice. That sounds awesome. And I mean, we've covered quite a bit here, but I guess
Yeah.
where can people get a hold of you and follow you and keep up with what you're doing online?
Yeah, I would really encourage people to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. It's called FOXHOLE Comics, and I try to do weekly videos. Usually it's either weekly or bi-weekly, and I've been revealing variant covers for Manchild right now. And I also have a series called The Art of Writing Comics, where I look at my favorite stories and I go through them, and I sit there and record, and I talk about what I love about this story, and looking at the structure of it, and also how layouts are done and different things like that. So that's been really fun. And I'll just do different topic videos. Yeah. I'll be doing different topic videos. I did this one video where I actually drew an entire Marvel comic, just looking at a comic and drawing it, and I did the entire issue, and I do a side-by-side in one video where I look at the the comic itself and then what I did, and compare and contrast and stuff. So yeah, it's really a place where you can get my thoughts and my updates on what I'm working on and things. So I'd really encourage people to check that out. And then I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and just Nandor Fox Shaffer, or at Nandor Fox, and you can find me on there. I'm sure there's not very many Nandor Fox out there, so you'll probably be able to find me pretty easily. And yeah, I really love engaging with people. If you read my work, I love when people let me know, if they read it, or if they have questions about it. I love interacting with people online, and just hearing what they think, and that's really satisfying, and it means a lot to me as a creator when someone reaches out and is like, hey, I got this in the mail, or I read this, and just wanted to let you know. And so I really encourage that for people to do, because I love talking with people about their favorite. And it doesn't have to be my stuff. It could be stuff they love, and I love interacting with people. So yeah,
that's awesome, man. Sounds like you have a lot going on. Rising through the ranks pretty quick.
You could say that again. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I don't know. I'm just like on autopilot, but I have to sit back and go, kind of look at things and go, yeah, like, okay, I'm doing this. This is what I want to do, and it's really satisfying. It's been a long process, making comics for the last 4 or 5 years, and just trying to put myself out there and see if people like what I'm doing, and I hope they do. It's so that's why I love the feedback, and I love seeing what I can do with my work, and I hope people enjoy it. And I always feel like I'm hopefully making progress little by little. And I think just for other creators out there who feel the same way, it's like you just got to keep grinding. And even if no one likes your stuff on social media or interacts with you, like, just keep doing what you love. And I really wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love it to death. And so I really just love making comics and making a quality product where people can really feel like they got something of value. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like, I kind of talk about the same thing, because I love like long form content. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like long interviews and long YouTube stuff, and for me, like, long form is where it's at. But that's not necessarily the most successful thing that you can do for yourself, Right.
But I often talk about, like, because I love it and because I do it, like, I know that there's an audience that will find me. There are other people that like this kind of stuff, and so it doesn't mean that every day is necessarily successful for me, but it also means that I know I'm holding out for whenever my tribe finds me, my tribe is going to show up, you know? So
Yeah.
I feel like that's how
Yeah,
you
I
have to
love
do.
that.
Like, you have to be honest to yourself, because people will find you. There are other people like you somewhere, you know? So always do
Yeah.
you, and somebody's going to show up.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've seen that little by little, and I'm like, where you guys been? You know, like this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, because as soon as you adjust to like what everybody wants, like they're gonna know you're fake, you know. Like we were talking about, like if the
Yeah,
story doesn't
totally.
feel organic, like you can tell, you know. So that's
Yeah,
awesome,
yeah.
man. Well, it's been a blast talking to you. I had a great time, and I think like what you're working on sounds really interesting. I'm really excited to be able to check this out and see your
Thank
future
you.
success.
Yeah. Yeah, if, you know, for people that are watching, you know, I have a sign up page right now to the first issue of Manchild. It's a pre-launch page where people can sign up and get notified like the second it launches on Kickstarter. So for people that, you know, want to snag one of those, you know, variant covers before they're gone, or, you know, just want to back it on day one, there's a sign up page, and I have 80 followers right now on it. So that's really exciting. And I'm hoping that,
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome.
my goal is, yeah, my goal has been to hit 100. So I'm really looking forward to trying to hit 100 followers before the campaign launches. But yeah, it's been really encouraging, and a lot of people have been really encouraging about the project. So I just can't wait for people to read it and to check it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to put that link in the description, and that way everybody can just click over to it and then hit that notification, or go ahead and back
Yeah,
if it's
man.
already
Thank
launched,
you.
and that way you know everything can start rolling for you, because I'm excited to see this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.